Hello, and welcome to the Highlanes Art Workshop Online with myself, Julie, today. You're all very welcome on board. Today, we're going to look at a particular genre of painting, which is called still life, taken from the Dutch word stil even. And it can be broken down into two segments or two parts: natural still life and man made still life. Now, natural still life is made up of food or flowers, shells, rocks, and things such as we find in the natural world. And the man made objects that we find in still life paintings are things such as vases, teapots, silverware, cups, saucers, pots, pans, so on and so forth. And these are essentially what we would call inanimate objects. These are things that do not live, they're not living, they're not breathing, and that is what really a still life painting is. Now, I've taken my inspiration today from the permanent collection in the Highlanes by the female artist Grace Henry. She is Scottish born, but she spent a significant amount of time on Achill Island with her husband Paul Henry. And I was really taken with a painting of flowers from the permanent collection in the Highlanes. It is just magnificent. It is really bursting with colour, very bright and vibrant. And it just reminded me of all the beautiful still lives that there are in the world and, throughout art history, which is a good starting point for me today because I want to look back at Dutch 17th century golden age still life painting. And we find in Flemish countries, which is now modern day Belgium, in the likes of Antwerp, that some artists did these monumental still lifes. They were huge in size and grandeur, and they were luxurious, they were exotic, they were banquet scenes. They had bunches of grapes, fabulous cheeses, lemons, lobsters, silverware, and they all created this kind of magnificent sense of the exotic. Because we might look at a lemon now and think, well, what about it? It's just a lemon. But in the 1600s in Holland and in Amsterdam, this was a very luxurious and exotic item to have. And in a way, these still lives were very boastful. The painters would show us these wonderful interior settings, these banquet scenes, and it would reflect really the kind of the wealth of the person's house or the household name as such. And what we see is, as well, in some of these paintings, there is moral messages coming through. These are called vanitas or memento mori, which are Latin words, which literally just are reminders of death, reminders of the shortness, the brevity of time, and kind of stand as warnings to us to enjoy our life and to try and be as good as we can, and not to give in to the 7 deadly sins as such. But you would see things like hourglasses and skulls, maybe a snubbed out candle, all reminders again of the shortness of time. And you'll see on the screen here one of the most famous still life painters from the Dutch Golden Age, William Heda de Claes. And again, you'll see the crab, the silverware, it's exquisite. Even the folds of the tablecloth is done so sumptuously, so lavishly. And these are very kind of over the top scenes because, this wouldn't have been an everyday table for dinner during the 1600s in Amsterdam by any means. So these were obviously very wealthy people that these paintings were done for. But again, the still life would have been seen as the lowest end of in the rankings of paintings in the different genres of painting, because you would have had the likes of historical work would have been much more important, or religious subject matter, or then again portraits were up there as well, up higher, and you would have seen the likes of landscape and still lives down at the bottom. But nonetheless, they had their place in art history. They're absolutely beautiful, and we look back at them now with great appreciation, just because the skill, the craftsmanship in them was just unbelievable. Which takes me to my next painter, which is Yann Bruegel the Elder. And there was many Bruegels in the family. There was the elder, the younger, the father, the son, the cousin, the brother. There was quite a lot of them. And they were Flemish. And Yann Bruegel was called Velvet Bruegel, in fact, or Flower Bruegel, or Paradise Bruegel, and you'll see the image here of this beautiful bouquet. I mean, they were absolutely extraordinary, his still lives. They were bursting with absolute colours and textures, and that's how he earned his name Velvet, because you could almost feel the flower petals in the pictures. And next of all, I'll go on to look further afield to Italy, to Rome, to Caravaggio. And Caravaggio is usually linked up with religious paintings and portraits, and that's what we think of when we think of Caravaggio. But he also did this beautiful still life in 1599 called Basket of Fruit, and you can see that in Milan. That's in the Biblioteca Ambrosiano. And this is a wicker basket filled to the brim with fruit, perched on the edge of this ledge, and it's referred to as a prototype of the still life genre. So this is basically just when they say prototype, what they mean by that is that it was one of the earliest examples of a still life painting, and then people would have looked at this for inspiration, and it would have helped people to look back in time in the middle of the 1600s. They would have looked back at this prototype, and it would have kind of been inspirational for them. It's brimming with fruit and leaves. I think the standout word here is realism. They look good enough to eat. There's great attention to detail. The beauty, the excellence, they're so elegant. And you know, the realism, you'll even see that there's a little hole in the fruit where a worm has eaten some of it. And the leaves are beginning to shrivel. Again, this is another message, this idea of the memento mori, the inexorable passing of time, the shortness of time, that life will always lead in the end to death, you know, but just making us aware of our life. And you know, it's just a really beautiful Baroque piece. It's a wonderful still life, really. And next I'll look at Paul Cezanne, a French artist, and this is a basket of apples from 1895, and this is in Chicago. But what you'll notice is that everything's a little bit off balance, a little bit disjointed. The perspective is a little bit off. You'll see the table is like too steeply tipped to the left, where the fruit is nearly in danger of rolling off onto the viewer's lap. And that's part of its charm, I think. And this kind of bridged the gap between Impressionism and Cubism, because it has a very edgy feel to it. They almost look 3D, the apples. And this inspired people like Picasso, the Cubists, who called Cezanne the father of us all. And I just think it's a really nice example of, you know, 19th century still life. Takes us through the timeline of art history. And then I wanted to look at a very iconic and famous piece that I'm sure you've all probably seen at some stage in your lives. It's by Vincent van Gogh. You'll see it here, The Sunflowers, 1888. And he painted this when he was in the south of France. He stayed in a place called Yellow House in Arles, and he was a little bit lonely down there. He was waiting for his friend, fellow artist Paul Gauguin, to come and visit him. And he had a spare room, a guest room, and he thought to himself, out of gratitude of his friendship with Paul, that he would paint these beautiful 5 sunflower paintings to decorate the room, essentially. And they're bursting with luminous yellow light. And he's just used 3 shades of yellow, which is in itself extraordinary. And I think he ended up giving 2 of them to Gauguin. And the other 3, one of them can be found in the National Gallery in London, and the other one is in the Van Gogh Museum, and maybe the other one is privately owned, I'm not too sure. And that's probably one of the most famous still lives that you'll ever see. And that leads me up to then a more modern painter, Giorgio Morandi. He is from Bologna in Italy. And why I wanted to look at him is because he has kind of removed all of the details that we've seen in the previous artists, and he's really stripped it back to the basics, the bare essentials. You'll see the very simple subject matter. They're almost just the subtle tones of the colouring is beautiful as well. They're almost just shapes. The form, the line, that's all you'll see. It's very pared down, and it's a fabulous example of a modern still life. So that's an artist to look more closely at if you can, if you have time. Giorgio Morandi. And this was done in 1955. So now I think that leads us nicely on to the practical end of things, and we're going to attempt to make our very own still lives. So having looked at all the paintings that we looked at today, I think if you take what suits you best to focus your attention on, but let the flow and the most important thing about still life is observation and flow. So it's all about your observation skills today. Take the time out to look at the objects, really look at them, study them, and feel the visual link between your eye and your hand match up. So you're looking at the objects, you can arrange them and rearrange them as you wish. And as you're painting them, or as you're drawing them first, you're going to draw them first, let the flow come from your eye and down in through your hand and into the pencil, all the while concentrating. But taking your time, really kind of taking in the objects and feeling them, getting the whole sensation and feeling around the image. And good luck. We're going to go on to the practical side of things. Hello everyone, and welcome to the practical workshop of still life drawing and still life painting. Now, the most important thing for the children today is that they focus on looking at the objects. 80% will be looking at the objects, keeping their eye and their attention on the objects that they're drawing, and taking the time to just be in their own space and have their own stillness. Maybe pop on some music for them and sit them at the table and just set aside 20 minutes to half an hour for this part, which is literally just looking and observation and letting the flow of the creativity and the creativeness coming from the eye all the way down through the arm and into the hands. And at this point, all you can do is be there for them to help them if they need anything, like their pencil needs to be paired, etc. But this is the nice part. So just let them concentrate and focus and observe the items for now. So as you progress and you're adding all of your items, your objects into your picture. Now I've gone onto canvas here, I've jumped on because we've done all our preliminary sketches and we're ready to go to canvas now with it. You can place objects so that the children get the idea of how objects will go in behind other objects. So it's all about your arrangement as well, to give them an idea of composition of an image. And at this point, if you want to use your charcoal sticks, feel free to just snap a little bit off, and then you get a lovely, nice dark shading. So you can begin to contour and shade. So you can hatch, which will be going sideways, and you can cross hatch, which is sideways and going through. I'll show you that now as we progress. We'll do some cross hatching and some hatching as well. So now we're going to come to the part where it's probably the most difficult part, or the most challenging part of drawing the flower, which in this case is a tulip. And literally you're going to just let it come kind of organically from your eye, from your observation. Let it flow into your hand and follow the flow of the pencil onto the surface of the canvas. Now for tulips, I advise doing 3 points to the front. They have 3 arches like so. And then add a little bit of contour there for their shape, their colour, and then 3 coming in at the back to get that kind of depth, that three-dimensional feel to it. And again, flowing down back into the vase. And with the leaves of the flowers, don't worry about making mistakes. These can all still be rubbed out and they can be blended in, and especially when we go to use charcoal, you'll see that we can blend these in here. So for now, it's all about trial and error and feeling. The still life painting is the feeling that you're getting when you're sketching it, okay? Okay, so when you're at a stage where you're almost happy with the composition, so you like where the objects are and they've turned out relatively well, you will notice, if you've been sketching on the canvas, that it does inevitably get a little messy. But don't worry, kids, all you need to do is grab yourself a rubber and, as you can see, lightly tidy up all of the smudging that's happened on the surface there. And when we go to paint this again, you'll notice it less and less. But what I wanted to show you now is, before we continue, is I mentioned that we were going to use some artist's charcoal, and this pack by Winsor Newton is fantastic. They're 3 medium willow sticks in the pack, and they're really beautiful. And as you can see, I mentioned this idea of shading. And when you go along here in a sideways motion, we call that hatching. And if you want to give it more depth, you can bring it down vertically, and this is called cross hatching. Again, using your thumbs and your fingers to smooth out any of the rough edges. Okay, so that just gives it, as you can see, a little more depth at the side. And it kind of makes it more realistic, like there is this idea of light pouring in, light and shade into your still life. Okay, so there you can see that there. Okay, so we're on to the final stage of our still life drawing and painting class. And this is the really nice part. This is where you get to maybe take your canvas outside into the garden, outdoors, and begin to use watercolours. I suggest a pack like this. You don't have to get anything too expensive. And again, if you don't have watercolours to hand in the house on the day, just use normal children's poster paint. Don't worry too much or get too bogged down about your materials. Use some brushes, different sizes, large, medium and small. And again, you don't need an artist palette. You can literally use the back of an egg box and pop in your paints here, and you can mix your colours as you go. So I'm going to get cracking, and I'm going to get through about half of this painting, and I'll check back in with you then and see how we're progressing. Okay. Now the children are busy painting here. They're just taking it all in their stride, and it's all about time and having space and having stillness and having some kind of calm, reflective time for the kids. Always nice to get out into the good weather in the garden, if it is weather permitting, of course. Now we have a finished product here. This is beautiful. Well done to my very talented assistant Amelia today. That is absolutely beautiful. And we can see James here has done an equally beautiful picture, and he's just finishing up here. So you can see all that creativity coming out in the beautiful use of colours. Hi girls and boys, thanks for joining me today on the Still Life art lesson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. This is the finished product, which is a combination of charcoal drawing and watercolour painting. But please remember, just use what you have in your houses. So if you want to just do the painting bit, that's perfectly fine. And if you just want to do the drawing part, of course, that's fine as well. But the most important part is to have fun and to send in your pictures if you can when you're finished, so we can see the end result. Best of luck and thank you.